Hello, and welcome to the Year 9 Options Evening History presentation. I'm Mr. Page, the Curriculum Leader for History, and in this presentation I will talk you through what we study at GCSE History here at Hurstmere, the commitment required to take GCSE History, and the benefits of taking the subject. Hopefully, by the end of the presentation, you will then have all you need to make an informed decision as to whether or not history is the correct subject for you to take. The first thing we study at GCSE History is a thematic study called Medicine in Britain, from 1250 to the present day. The history of medicine covers a wide range of topics and issues, and while you may think it is just about medicine, it is actually about a lot more. Throughout the study of medicine, we look at religious beliefs, government policy, the Industrial Revolution, scientific and technological advancement, and the impact of wars on medicine, such as the First and the Second World Wars. The medicine course is split into 4 different sections, and this is so you can see the progression of medicine throughout human history. We start by looking at the Middle Ages, then we progress to the Renaissance, then we look at the Industrial period, and we finish by looking at the modern world. After Christmas, we look at a specific section called the Historic Environment, which focuses specifically on the British sector of the Western Front during the First World War. After we have studied medicine through time, we move on to our period study, which is superpower relations and the Cold War from 1941 to 1991. This is my personal favourite course, and is a study of the political rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union and their respective allies that developed after the Second World War. This course is split into 3 parts, and it starts by looking at the emergence of the 2 superpowers and the global order after the Second World War and the dropping of the atomic bomb on Japan. Then we move on to flashpoints, where we look at the building of the Berlin Wall and also the Cuban Missile Crisis, which remains to this day the closest the 2 sides got to nuclear war. And lastly, we finish by looking at the end of the Cold War by looking at Reagan, Gorbachev, and the collapse of the Soviet Union. After studying the Cold War, we go back in time again for our British depth study, where we study Anglo-Saxon and Norman England from 1060 to 1088. This course looks at the Norman conquest of Anglo-Saxon England and the huge impact that conquest has had on England. We start by looking at Anglo-Saxon England, and then we move on to the Norman conquest, where we look at the most famous battle in British history, the Battle of Hastings. After that, we move on to William the Conqueror and his consolidation of power in England, by finally looking at the Normanisation and changes to life in England that the Norman conquest caused. Finally, we look at our modern depth study, which is the United States of America from 1954 to 1975, conflict at home and abroad course. This is the modern depth study that focuses on 2 main issues that America faced, both at home and abroad, from 1954 to 1975. This course is split into 2 separate sections. The first section focuses on the development of the civil rights movement, the challenges that civil rights movement faced, and to what extent it overcame those challenges. And we look at people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks. And then the final thing we study is we look at why the USA was involved in the Vietnam War and the reaction to that involvement. The idea of this course is we look at 2 separate areas of American history at the same time, one at home being civil rights and one abroad, the Vietnam War. In terms of assessment, there are 3 examination papers at the end of the GCSE history course. We study Edexcel history, and there is no coursework or any controlled assessment. You can see the 3 exams on the screen. The first paper is the medicine paper, which is an hour and 15 minutes. Paper 2 is the Cold War and Anglo-Saxon England, which is an hour and 45 minutes. And paper 3 is the USA 1954 to 1975 conflict at home and abroad, which lasts an hour and 20 minutes. If you take history at GCSE at Hurstmere, you will have 5 hours of history over the 2-week timetable, which is the same as you get in Year 9 currently. Homework is set once a week. It will either be online via Educate or to revise your knowledge organiser. Pupils will require strong levels of literacy, and you must be willing to write at length. Hard work and commitment to the subject is required. History is a very difficult subject if you fall behind, and it means attendance, punctuality, and willingness to revise independently is an important thing to consider before you take GCSE history. If you are still unsure whether to take GCSE history, hopefully I can convince you on this slide. I'm obviously very biased, but I think history is a fascinating and a diverse course. We study multiple different countries in different periods of time, and it is also a very vibrant department staffed by excellent teachers. We're very proud of the results we've achieved since the introduction of the new GCSEs in 2016, and they have consistently been strong. As well as that, if you take history, you will have a greater understanding of the challenges facing the modern world. In our world today, we still see conflicts such as the war in Ukraine, and by studying the Cold War, you have a greater understanding of why that conflict is going on today. And finally, you develop skills that are in great demand within the economy today, such as critical thinking, empathy, and analysis of events. Thank you for listening.